According to Matthew. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from the other, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you that are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothes. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." And this is the gospel of the Lord. So a very good evening to you all. You're very welcome to this session. Just before we begin, some announcements. Tomorrow is the final day of our Novena, and it is the feast of St. Gerard, and we will bless all objects of piety at the sessions tomorrow, at all the sessions. You may have noticed when you were coming in, a stall has been set up. So Redemptor's Communications are with us today, and they will be promoting our publications, Reality and Face-Up, which I would encourage you to have a look at, maybe sign up. Reality is our religious magazine dealing with aspects of Christian life. Face-Up is specifically geared towards young people. On top of that, we're also promoting the new book on St. Gerard. We spoke about it on the first day. It's a very beautiful book and well worth buying as maybe a gift for somebody else or a gift for yourself. And today, because Redemptor's Communications are here, they're actually throwing in a free calendar. Now, it doesn't get as good as that. Brian told me he wouldn't come close. So, I'd say, please do. Paul has been out there all day. He's down from Belfast. He's a lovely man. He wouldn't overcharge you a penny. And he's freezing cold, so at least go out and talk to him. We also like to remind you that our special Remembrance Mass for babies who died in the womb, at birth or in infancy, will take place on Sunday next at 7 p.m. And there's a box that has already been placed at St. Gerard's Shrine to allow you to put the names of babies in the box and be included for that celebration. Simply just write the names on the card in the box, and all of the names will be treated with the utmost respect and confidentiality. Tickets are selling fast for our late London Christmas concert, which takes place in this church on Tuesday the 10th of December. And tickets are available for purchase at the reception of the monastery, and they cost €20 each. Now, to start this evening, I have to share with you something that's a little light. Poor Derek is very upset, and he was just telling me, Father Derek, in settlement. Because he was telling me that he was in a very embarrassing situation recently. A young couple in the parish had invited him for lunch, and while the parents were in the kitchen getting it ready, he was sitting there, and the young son was there, and he asked the young son, "Well, what are we having for dinner?" And the young fella said, "Goat." And Derek said, "Are you sure about that?" And he says, absolutely. He said, I heard Daddy saying to Mommy this morning, sure, today is as good as any to have that goat over for dinner. You'll be all right. There's a reason for telling that. In the Gospel we just read, we hear the famous judgment scene from Matthew's Gospel, where Jesus separates the goats from the sheep. At a first reading, the message, or at the first reading of that Gospel, the message is quite clear. If you have fed and watered the hungry, if you have clothed the naked, if you have visited the sick or prisoners, if you're good, you'll go to heaven. If you're bad, well, you go to hell. I invite us to maybe read that again and to think maybe a little bit differently about that Gospel. For two reasons. One, I happen to quite like goats, and I think they get a rough deal. Because see, sheep are lovely. But like the expression goes, to be sheepish, they can be very passive, and they have a tendency to stick together. And although goats are very hard-headed, very stubborn, and they keep hopping and breaking the fence, at least they show a bit of independence and spunk. And I like that about them. But more importantly, I think we need to be careful as we read this Gospel, because it presents, at a first reading, a very strange and bizarre image of God, of a vengeful God, of a God who would want to motivate us to be good out of fear of judgment rather than out of love. So the question that I want to put for all of us is, when we listen to that Gospel, are the sheep and goats different set of people? Good people, bad people? Or are they different aspects of our life, where in that judgment day we will be saved by Christ, casting out or healing those aspects of our life that are broken and rebellious? Let me try and present this a different way. If I were to ask you to put up your hand, I don't know whether I should try this or not, but if I were to ask you to put up your hand, if at any time in your life you have fed a hungry child, or you've given money to charity, or to a homeless person, or visited somebody who is elderly or sick, I imagine that the vast majority of us could put our hand up to that. Is that right? Yeah? You see, you're good sheep. Now, if I was asked you to do the same thing again, to put your hand up, if you have ever walked past a homeless person, or you didn't send that get well card, or you ignored a person in need, would you still be able to put your hands up? Would you? Yeah. Because I imagine that the same people who had their hands up the first time would have their hands up the second time. So where does this leave us? Are you bad goats? Good sheep, bad goats? I think it's very simple. The truth is that we are good goats. We are people who need God's mercy. Anybody who has ever felt alienated, unloved, or overwhelmed by shame, or helplessly caught in addiction, know what it's like to be in hell. Anyone who has ever been welcomed home, who has seen goodness reflected in the affirming eyes of another, or who have been loved into recovery, know what it's like to be in heaven. The truth is that this gospel, the good news that we are asked to proclaim with our lives, which is the theme for today, well, that gospel that we are asked, the good news that we're asked to proclaim is this, is that the love and mercy of God forgives and heals us, making out of us good goats out of bad, all of us. And this should compel us, the knowledge of that love and mercy, should compel us to do the same to others. Not like bad sheep who are motivated only by fear of judgment, but rather our good works should be an expression of this faith and hope that we have. Our understanding that the love and mercy that we have and will receive from God is given freely. We haven't earned it. And when we do the same to others, we offer it to Christ, especially in the face of the poor and those who suffer. That is our motivation for doing good works. Not fear, not judgment, not simply for the sake of doing it, but because we know that we are people who rely on the mercy of God. I think this presents a big challenge for our church. There's always a temptation for us to think that faithfulness is shown by going to Mass, and only that. But if all we are doing is huddling together like sheep, with our eyes closed to the suffering of the world, we are not announcing the gospel with our lives. Rather, I think the Christian life requires us to show a little bit of goatish behaviour. It demands of us to hop the fence, to leave the security of the fold, to see the world, and in the process, if we make mistakes, we hurt ourselves or hurt other people, that we know that the church is waiting for us with the open arms of mercy to make good goats out of bad. I know for many of you parents and grandparents that there can be a great worry about young people, especially when they stop going to Mass. It can be difficult to see a new generation not hold on to the faith that is so important to us. And it can be hard and difficult to have to choose on a Sunday morning between forcing them out to go to Mass or keeping the peace in the house. What I would say is that the faith that you have passed on to them can never be lost. They might choose to hop the fence, but in difficulty or when priorities change, the faith that you have given to them will always be there to nourish them. Maybe there's a different tack that all of us as church people should take in that might be more successful in attracting people back to the church. I think that when we give witness to the faith and hope that we have in Christ and His mercy, by doing good works in the name of faith, and not just talking about what we must do, I think we have a better chance of attracting especially young people who want to see authenticity. You see, rules make the stubbornness of a goat come out in people, especially young people. There are, thanks be to God, many good people in our church and in our society. People who see the needs of the real world and who respond to them. And the needs today are many. In a height of a terrible recession, where young people struggle with unemployment, without the dignity that comes from work, where sick and elderly people are often very lonely and isolated and unvisited. Maybe if we can really be motivated by our faith, we might consider that if we were in the position to do it, that creating even one job is a Christian act when motivated by faith. I think of the tens of thousands of volunteers who work with organisations like the St. Vincent de Paul and who attend the sick and feed the poor day in and day out in this country. Well, they are washing feet and breaking bread when motivated to do so by faith. The parents who selflessly look after their children, teaching them faith, tending them when they're sick, putting up with the hassle, are acting for Christ when motivated by faith. The apostle in the first reading we heard says, "By my works I will show you my faith." And this is the message for today. That it is a call not just to belong to the church, but to be the church in our world. And to rejoice, especially when they call you a Noel goat. Because then you can stand confident that by God's grace and mercy, that all of us are goats made good by our faith and by our works. Amen. We present before the Lord all of the petitions and intentions that we have and that have been presented at the shrine. Would you please pray for Miriam, who is going through a major operation at the moment. The next few hours are crucial. Please, St. Gerard, give my best friend safe delivery of her baby. She is due in 2 weeks and had a previous section. Help keep my family together. Please, St. Gerard, help me to become a better person and go back to my faith. Please help my elderly mother cope with her infirmity, my sister with her illness, my brother-in-law with his cancer, and please help my daughter find a job and cope with a newly diagnosed genetic illness. Thank you for her blessings. Dear St. Gerard, please keep my children safe from all harm and help them to achieve all their ambitions. I want to ask you to always keep my special nephew in your prayers, and that his mom will